This is the founder's code, decoding the hidden stories of power, greed, and ambition that shaped our world. Across China, a forest of skyscrapers pierces the clouds. For decades, this was the symbol of a nation's unstoppable rise. And behind this concrete jungle stood one man, a figure larger than life, Su Jiayin, the undisputed king of China's real estate dreams. His story, and the story of his empire, Evergrande, is a modern epic of ambition, glory, and a spectacular, earth-shattering collapse. This wasn't just about building houses, it was about selling a dream. Evergrande promised a new life, a golden ticket to the middle class. They promised luxury apartments, built at breathtaking speed, turning barren fields into gleaming cities seemingly overnight. Imagine this. You put down a deposit on a home that doesn't even exist yet, just a blueprint and a promise. Millions did. They believed in the Evergrande promise of a brighter, more prosperous future. This model, called pre-selling, fueled an unprecedented expansion. It was a high-wire act, using tomorrow's money to build today's dreams. And the dream just kept getting bigger. Evergrande wasn't content with just being a real estate giant. The company ballooned, its tentacles reaching into every corner of the Chinese economy. They bought a football club, Guangzhou FC, and filled it with stars. They ventured into bottled water, electric vehicles, and even owned a bank. Evergrande became more than a company. It was a symbol of China's boundless ambition, a testament to the idea that growth could be infinite and that with enough willpower, anything was possible. Everything he touched turned to gold, and the Evergrande brand was synonymous with success. This created a powerful illusion of wealth. On paper, Evergrande was a financial titan. Money poured in from all directions. Global investors, eager to get a piece of the China growth story, lined up to buy its bonds. Ordinary Chinese families poured their life savings into Evergrande's high-yield wealth management products, believing they were as safe as a bank deposit. The company borrowed billions, then borrowed billions more to pay off the old debts. It was a dizzying cycle of debt-fueled growth. The mantra was simple: Evergrande is too big to fail. The Chinese government would never let it collapse. It was an unsinkable ship in the sea of global finance. But beneath the gleaming facade of its towers and the roar of its football stadiums, a colossal problem was festering. The debt, the lifeblood of its expansion, was becoming a poison. It quietly piled up to over $300 billion. That's more than the entire economic output of many countries. The company was a house of cards, built on a foundation of borrowed money and increasingly risky bets. The higher it built, the more unstable it became. The cracks were beginning to show, but for a while, everyone was too mesmerized by the view from the top to look down. Then, the tremors began. The music, which had played for so long, finally stopped. The first signs of trouble were on the construction sites. Cranes stood motionless. Half-finished apartment blocks became concrete skeletons, open to the wind and rain. Workers, who had toiled to build these cities of the future, stopped receiving their paychecks. The supply chain ground to a halt as contractors and suppliers, owed vast sums of money, walked away. The promises made to millions of families were turning to dust. Their life savings, invested in the dream of a new home, were now trapped in these ghost buildings. The dream was becoming a nightmare. What started as tremors quickly became a full-blown earthquake. The panic was palpable. Crowds of frantic investors, many of them Evergrande's own employees, surrounded the company's headquarters, screaming for their money back. They held signs, they chanted, they wept. These were not Wall Street bankers. They were ordinary people who had trusted the system, who had believed in the Evergrande name. Homeowners, who had paid for apartments that would now never be finished, staged protests across the country. The social unrest was a red line for the Chinese government. The spectacle of public anger was something Beijing could not ignore. The situation was spiraling out of control. Finally, the official narrative began to crumble. The illusion that Evergrande was too big to fail was shattered by a brutal reality. It was actually too broken to save. Bailing out the company would mean rewarding reckless borrowing and creating what economists call moral hazard, encouraging other companies to behave just as irresponsibly. The government chose a different path. It signaled that there would be no massive state-sponsored rescue. Beijing's message was clear: the era of unrestrained, debt-fueled growth was over. The party was finished, and Evergrande was left to face the consequences of its own excess. The collapse of this one company sent shockwaves through the entire Chinese economy, a system built on the bedrock of real estate. The property market, which accounts for nearly a third of China's GDP, began to seize up. Dozens of other smaller developers, who had copied Evergrande's borrow and build model, began to default one by one. The confidence that had propelled the market for decades vanished overnight. People stopped buying homes. The price of steel, cement, and other construction materials plummeted. It was a chain reaction, a domino effect that threatened to pull the entire economy down with it. And what of the man at the center of it all? Su Jianyin's downfall was as dramatic as his rise. The billionaire, once celebrated as a national hero and a visionary entrepreneur, became a pariah. Stripped of his political honors, he was forced to sell off his private jets and luxury mansions to try and pay down the company's debts. Eventually, he was placed under police surveillance, facing accusations of a host of financial crimes. The king was dethroned, his empire in ruins, a symbol of how quickly fortunes can turn when a gamble fails to pay off. His story became a cautionary tale of hubris and corporate greed. In the end, the story of Evergrande is more than just the failure of a single company. It's a reflection of China's growth model itself, a model that prioritized speed and scale above all else, often at the cost of sustainability and financial discipline. For decades, China pursued growth at any cost, building cities, railways, and bridges at a pace the world had never seen. Evergrande was the ultimate expression of that philosophy. Its collapse signaled that this era had reached its limit. It was a painful, but perhaps necessary, correction. From dazzling glory to utter ruin, the saga of Evergrande serves as a stark warning to the entire world. It's a lesson written in concrete and steel, in broken promises and lost fortunes. It teaches us that if you build too fast, borrow too deeply, and fly too close to the sun, even the mightiest of empires will inevitably come crashing down to earth. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the events that shape our world. See you next time.